Let's talk about the fear of not being good enough. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Vanessa. Welcome. And I just had a really beautiful day of sessions and meetings, and I find myself lately in such a wonderful space where I'm returning to, or settling in a new city that I'm actually returning to, and feeling a real wind of change in a really positive way. And in that wind of change, and in all the beautiful things that are floating to me, which I'm so thankful for, and just practicing a lot of gratitude and allowing myself to deserve all the beautiful things that are happening at the moment. And in the process of those beautiful things happening, that's why I'm sharing this with you. Sometimes things also happen in our mind when good stuff happens. I'm sure when you've ever had this fear of not being good enough, that can have happened to you as well. When you felt like, whoa, good stuff is coming. Do I deserve that? Or am I good enough? Will I be able to sort of keep those beautiful experiences coming, And I just want to let you know, yes, you can. And I also want to let you know, sorry if you hear sound in the background. It's a doggy, just eating on her little treat that I gave her. So apologies if you hear some background sound. Okay, so if we fear not being good enough, and it doesn't matter if you are right now in a good space or in not such a good space, I want to make like a specific point clear that has to do with not feeling like you're good enough. And it all has to do with the level of self-trust that we can give to ourselves, and also the level of trust we can give to life, to the universe, God, source, however you want to call it. And that is really interesting, because when you think about it, oh, am I good enough? Often the first instinct is to ask for validation on the outside, right? Like, am I good enough in terms of being in a relationship, in terms of doing your job right, in terms of being good enough for the clients that you want to serve, in terms of friendships that you may be coming in new, whatever new things you're starting, whatever opportunities come at you, no matter if in romance, personal life, family, projects, travel, work, whatever. Yeah, you get it. Am I good enough? And this is really a question only you can answer, and only you can support yourself in, right? Like, yes, outside validation may sort of help a little bit and can contribute to you feeling safe to keep on expressing yourself. But at the end of the day, that's at least how I feel, and what I've observed in my clients is that what we really need, we can often not get from the outside, right? It's something that we need to define, find, and claim within ourselves. And we come into this world fully worthy and fully deserving, and then we learn certain cues or certain directions where we actually start believing that we're less than, or that we're too much, or whatever narrative is sort of present within you. And again, I just want to share that this is a narrative that you can change. And yes, there's a little bit of work in the changing process of this narrative, but also it is so worth it, investing your time and energy into changing a limiting narrative or a non-supportive belief, or a wound that is within you where you feel sort of lack, or that you are lacking something. And sometimes it's hard to feel that emotion, or those emotions, plural, that come up with that fear of not being enough or being too much. And that's exactly what it is. It is a fear, and this fear is based on that narrative. And it also means that that part of ourselves, and here I'm referring again to partswork, inner family systems, internal family systems, in case you don't know this type of approach. It is an approach where we sort of see ourselves like a puzzle, and where we notice that we have so many inner parts, and some of those parts we are in touch with, that are integrated within us, that we know well, that we utilize, that we are in a good relationship with. And then we also have inner parts that we suppressed or abandoned or avoid in order to be accepted and loved in the world by other people. And sometimes it also happens that we abandon those parts because we had such a difficult, maybe even traumatic experience, that we learned that it's not safe to embody certain parts of ourselves. That's why it's so important to do this self-inquiry and positive self-work, and getting in touch with your emotions to understand, all right, what is the narrative I'm telling myself, and what are the emotions that are connected to that narrative? Is there any pain, any shame, any guilt, any sadness, any whatever emotions come up for you around that? And let me feel that through, so that I can, collect the wisdom on the other side of that wound, of that feeling, and understand, whoa, where does this even come from? What is the root cause of that wound, of that narrative, of that held emotion? And when we get to that, we actually realize, whoa, this has been learned through this experience. Like, it can be a single experience. Sometimes the experience can be super small, that taught you to not behave in a certain way, or behave in a certain way, or suppress parts of yourselves. And sometimes it's also a series of experiences. Or imagine growing up, it takes years, and you spend years and years maybe reinforcing, maybe you spend years and years reinforcing the same narrative. So it will also take some time to undo the knot that the narrative created, to undo the wounding, or the inner conflict that the wound, that the narrative has created within you. Yeah, the fear, the separation, the resistance to believing that you're good enough, or that you're not too much. Yeah, so it is, to close the circle on this, it's really all about understanding that I'm always enough, and have that as your baseline. Even if you don't believe it yet, just know that cognitively, I'm always enough. So if I don't believe that, let me work on learning to believe that, rather than being identified with the narrative of I'm not enough and just, accepting that. You don't need to accept that. You can cognitively understand I'm always worthy and I'm always deserving, but somehow something inside of me does not believe or support that positive narrative yet. So let me understand the wound. Let me understand the root cause. Let me understand what emotions are connected to that. Yeah. And once you get into that, and either maybe you're capable of journaling this out and feeling this through, but it could probably also be helpful to either work with a professional on that, or talk to a trusted person about that. But seek help and support to, especially because sometimes if you're not well versed in this work, sometimes it can feel a little bit heavy and overwhelming to deal with what's coming up and the emotions. So ask for help. You can click below and get in touch with me if that resonates for you. If not, find somebody that you resonate with. But I would really recommend you, because, you know, the experiences that are coming towards us, that we are seeking, whatever dream you have, however you want to feel and live, is possible. But sometimes we're not aware that we deserve this. So sometimes we may push those experiences away because we learned, I'm not deserving of this. I'm not worthy of this. And I know from myself in the past that I definitely have pushed away a lot of positive experiences that I actually dreamed of having, but I didn't feel ready, or I didn't feel deserving until I started doing this work. And I even had experiences in my life where I had the opportunity to, you know, start a company with somebody, and I did, but I always felt a little bit like undeserving of the title of the CEO that I had then, because I felt like, wow, why did I get this opportunity? Do I deserve that? So I always felt a little bit a little bit small in this. Although I'm smart, I worked hard, I absolutely deserved this now looking back, but a part of me wouldn't accept that I deserved that based on a negative limiting narrative that I carried within me. Yeah. And the last days, for example, for me, so this is an old story, but the last days, for example, were so overwhelmingly positive for me, where I got so many positive feedback, but also opportunities come in, beautiful moments with friends, and where I just felt like a little overwhelmed and sat myself down and said, whoa, okay, what's happening within me? Let me not pass this by. Let me be grateful. Let me not get to the point of sabotaging, because sometimes when overwhelm hits, we become a little bit unconscious. We may fall into automated patterns, and that may bring out old sort of behavior systems that used to keep us safe, but that don't serve us anymore, that are not beneficial for where we want to go and how we want to feel and how we want to live our lives, right? So then it's especially important. So if this is you right now, if you are in a very positive place and things are happening and you're like, whoa, but it's overwhelming, then take some moments out of your day to just breathe and be grateful and be conscious, to allow yourself and reinforce the positive narrative that you deserve what you are receiving, and not to push it away. Yeah, because sometimes it's really easy. So earlier today I did a meditation and I just felt I connected to my inner child, and I just asked her, hey, how are you feeling? And she was like, this is awesome, but do I deserve that? You know, so over time, this feeling of, or this fear of not being enough, or this feeling of not deserving something will get smaller and smaller the more you reinforce the positive narrative, but also the more you sort of reparent that part of you that feels undeserving. And sometimes that's an inner child part, and sometimes it's an inner teenager or a little bit of an older part, but you can still, I like to call that reparent that part for you, in order to give that part the reassurance that he or she didn't have growing up. It's not against your parents. There's no judgment on your caretakers growing up. It's just that, reparenting work is super powerful. So with that, I mean being your own parent and reinforcing positive narratives to your inner parts through meditation. You can also do this consciously. But it's really powerful because you're changing the data that is, or the software of your system. that is located in your subconscious mind and in your nervous system. And when you change that narrative, first of all, when you release the emotional charge around that old belief, so that means if you used to believe I'm not good enough, and that comes with emotional charge, right? That means you may have that feeling of shame around not feeling good enough. You may have this feeling of guilt, of being afraid to do something wrong or to be inappropriate. You know, whatever feeling it is for you, I'm just giving you examples. That is like the emotional charge of that belief. And the more you allow yourself, either in meditation or like with a practitioner, like I said earlier, to feel into, okay, where do I feel this in my body? Where do I feel that I'm not deserving or not good enough in my body? Okay, for me, it's in my chest, in my heart. Okay, so I'm going to breathe a few times into my heart space and make space for that feeling to come up. I allow this feeling to be felt within me. And I know that can feel uncomfortable, but I'm just saying, if that feels overwhelming to you to do by yourself, find somebody you trust, find a professional, and feel through it. And as you feel through it, you're already reducing the charge, right? It's like the charge is getting less by feeling through it and reassuring that part of yourself that feels that fear, and starting to introduce this new narrative, I'm enough. And you can even speak directly to that part and say, I know you're afraid that you're not enough. Mom told you, dad told you, or whatever, or you misunderstood and thought based on what you picked up then that you're not enough. But I'm here to tell you, you are enough. You know, from your adult self, you can tell that to yourself and reinforce this positive narrative. You can imagine in your mind to give that part of you a hug, or ask them, what do you need right now? Maybe they need to sit on your lap or walk with you hand in hand, or bring them to school. Just imagine that, because our mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So if you reinforce this narrative within you, you're gonna create a change. But it needs to be in connection with feeling those feelings through. So like whatever fear that part has, whatever emotion this part holds, let them feel it, don't bypass it, in order to then have that emotional space for them to learn a new narrative and emotion. Yeah, and the more you do that, like I just told you from my own example, now my emotional charge is so much smaller than it used to be years ago. Yeah, and now for me, it's so much easier to understand, oh, I feel overwhelmed about all the positive stuff that's happening in my life. Let me feel into what's happening. Oh, this part is really active that fears, oh, am I good enough? Am I deserving? Let me sit with this part. What are you feeling? I would ask. Oh, you're feeling a little bit of fear. You want a little bit of validation, you know? So I'm going to give you the validation because I believe in you. I believe in us. Yeah. And so the parent part, the adult self, you, gets to step up and decide, hey, I'm going to show up for you. It can also help to imagine like this is your little sister, your little brother within you that's afraid, because you would always support that little person, that child, right? You would fight for them. You would be their warrior. You would show up for them, right? Or if it's not your little brother or sister, it could be your child, your nephew, your niece, whatever. Yeah, you would show up for those people you love. So it's really time also to show up for the parts within yourself that have not received that recognition, that support, that reassurance that you deserve. Just because you didn't learn it, or there was not somebody there who had the capacity to provide that for you, doesn't mean you don't deserve it. Remember that. That's really, really important. That's why it's so important to take self-responsibility in those moments and take care of yourself. And if you're brave, if it's possible and accessible for you to ask your partner or your friends or a family member or somebody you love or trust to say, hey, can you give me a hug right now? I just really need that reassurance. Can you just tell me right now that I'm capable? You know, we don't all have people like that, or maybe we don't all trust enough yet. And that's okay. You go step by step, go little steps, but just know that you deserve that as well. Okay? I have to go to the door. I love you. Leave a comment below with how you feel about this topic, where you're at in your journey on that. If you like this video, leave me a thumbs up. I would really love that. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. I see you in the next video. Don't forget to believe in yourself. You've got this. Ciao. Okay, I was just about to upload the video, but I just wanted to add one more little grain of wisdom. Sometimes it may feel like you're crazy to take that risk to trust yourself. I know it may feel crazy, but feel into if it really is a fact that it's crazy. You know, like this will not resonate with everybody, but I just felt so called to share that as well, because sometimes it feels like a huge risk to be vulnerable, to share yourself, to express yourself. But this is what you're here for. You're here to be you, not somebody else, not some watered down version of you, you know? And you also don't need to wear any mask or whatever. So I know this is a process to accept and to also lean into and, you know, bit by bit step into. So take your time, there's no rush, but I just wanted you to know that it's a good risk to take for yourself if it means that you get to be you and seen in the world. And sometimes we're afraid of the consequences of being expressed exactly as we are and being seen and received by others. And it can happen that not everybody will resonate with that. And then it's all about also accepting that for yourself, that this is okay. Rejection is redirection, and you get to be you. Okay? You are enough. And this is so important for all of us to learn, because the happier we all are, which also means the more we get to be ourselves in places that, first of all, we feel safe in and feel held in. But once we go into those places, we get more brave and more courageous to, you know, dip our feet and our toes into other waters. And, you know, after time passes and we practiced daring to be ourselves in certain safer places, we also allow ourselves to be ourselves everywhere. With time, it's a process, right? Like, it also needs your nervous system to adjust, you know, to feel safe, to express yourself as you are, to be as you are, to come as you are. And that's completely okay. You don't need to do it all in one day. But just know that you deserve to believe in yourself and take risks for your own benefit. Okay? Mwah. Ciao.